Good afternoon. We've got some very special guests here at the Capitol. We've got some incredible students from Hopkins High School. We've also got the principal and a couple of school board members. And we're just glad you're here for this as we all work to do whatever we can to end and educate and do what we can for child trafficking and sexual exploitation. This is a small, what we believe is a common sense step to notify students and to start to educate, as you'll hear more in the story from Jessica and the Girls United here in Minnesota. So it's a great group. Jessica and the Girls United, this is a spectacular story, and we want to make sure that we recognize that as legislators, we have a lot of great ideas. We all think we do at times, but this is something that came from them. They were the ones that inspired this legislation. They are the ones who brought this to our attention as a way, from a personal experience at Hopkins High School, what they witnessed and how they could respond to this situation. So as we're in the week of the Super Bowl, and a lot of tension is on sex trafficking and sexual exploitation, this is something that we can do at the legislative level to hopefully address this situation. So I want to thank the link. Brandy is here to help out. Jessica has been in close contact with the executive director, Beth Holger Ambrose. She was unable to be here today, but we just want to welcome them, and they'll help tell the story as well. So I want to turn it over to Representative Mary Kunesh-Podein.
Well, good afternoon. I'm State Representative Mary Kunesh-Podein. I represent Senate District 41B, which includes St. Anthony Village, the southern half of New Brighton, Columbia Heights, and Hilltop. I've been a public school educator for the last 20 plus years, and I took the afternoon off to be here because I think this is really so important. I want to thank Jessica, first of all, for recognizing at such an early age that sexual harassment of any kind or any harassment or bullying is just absolutely unacceptable. And that sex trafficking is actually very pervasive in Minnesota, and we just can't stand by idly thinking that this isn't happening in our backyard and we don't have to take any action against it. I'd like to commend you, Jessica, and Girls United, your families, and especially the teachers in your school district for stepping up and leading the way to include schools in the educating and the eradication of this kind of behavior. Because the facts are that at least 1 in 4 middle schooler will report that they have had unwanted sexual or some kind of harassment in their time at school, and it's often just in the hallway, in the classrooms. And it's really heartbreaking, the rate of sexual violence that are usually worse for communities of color. Research shows that lingering trauma of sexual harassment disproportionately affects our marginalized communities. 27% of American Indian women have been assaulted in their lifetime, compared to 34% of women who identify as multicultural. 22% of Black women, 15% of Hispanic women, and 19% of white women will fall victim, and that includes high rates of our LGBT community as well. These statistical differences are important because of the negative side effects of sexual harassment and the assaults that result in frustration, depression, anger, and post-traumatic disorder that disproportionately, again, affects our communities of color, which ultimately are going to affect our families and our communities. I want to thank you, Jessica, again, and the girls for sharing your stories, for being leaders, and with your determination to address this situation, and for building a movement that is taking it to your school district. I look forward to working with all of you, as well as my comrades in the legislature, in working to end this kind of activity, and I'm hoping that we will have a very positive outcome in the next legislation session. Thank you very much, and I'll turn it over to Jessica herself.
Good afternoon. First and foremost, I'd like to thank all of the legislators, the school staff, and most importantly, my peers from Girls United for all the work that they have put in to help us be where we are today with this. Girls United, I'm Jessica Melnik, the founder and president of Girls United, and it was started in 2014, and it stemmed out of a conversation that we had in our 7th grade life science class. And I think that there's 2 of us here today that were in that science class. And throughout that year, the boys in the class, there was a disproportionate amount of girls to boys in that class. And the boys had said some sexist things to the girls throughout the year. And at the culmination of it, the teacher had split us up on either sides of the room, and she told us to come up with names for our own side of the room. But the boys were quick to want to come up with a name for us instead, and they wanted to call us the Sandwich Makers. And at that point in time, it didn't really mean much to any of us. I know I didn't feel offended at all. But the next day, we were fortunate enough to have a teacher that stood up to it, and she told them that that wasn't the right thing to say in that moment. After that, the teacher had got a group of about 5 or 6 girls together to read a book about gender inequality in schools. And it was a really eye-opening opportunity for a lot of us because it just wasn't something that we were thinking about or thought still existed. We started meeting before school in her classroom, and we read different books along the same genre in our 7th grade year. In 8th grade, we decided that there was a broader community that this message would hopefully reach, and we started meeting at our local library and invited speakers from the community to come and talk to us about different social issues that impacted us. We had speakers come and talk to us about body image, perfectionism, self-esteem, sex trafficking in the Dominican, and rape culture on college campuses. The following year, in 9th grade, we decided that we wanted to take action on some of the things that we'd been learning about. We had a job fair for ourselves and invited women from different professional fields to come and share their stories of how they got to where they are today and their advice for aspiring young women in their fields. We also held a STEM event to promote women in STEM to our 4th through 6th grade girls in our Hopkins School District. We had about 45 to 50 girls at the event, and it was really a success for all of us. We invited the middle school science and math teachers to come and do activities with them surrounding the 4 letters of STEM, so science, technology, engineering, and math. And ultimately, the high school girls behind me today were there to lead and facilitate the event. The parents of those young girls and the girls themselves really liked the event a lot, and the following year in 10th grade, last year, we had a monthly meeting group for them where we were able to talk about some of the similar issues that we talked about when we first started. And it was a really nice growing opportunity for us because we were able to share our experiences, having been a little bit older with the younger girls, but we were also able to hear what concerns they had and, quite frankly, what they thought about some of the issues. This year, when we came together with our youth advisory board, we decided that we want this message and this legacy to continue past our graduation, which will hopefully be next year. And we came up with our Leaders in Training program, which consists of about 9 junior high girls that come and plan events with us. And then also we host leadership events and other events for them. Ultimately, this year, they'll be planning the STEM Sunday event that we have taking place in 2 weekends in February, and a body image day for the 4th through 6th graders in the spring. We also have started a new project, which is our canvas painting projects at our elementary schools in the Hopkins School District, where we're going in and the younger girls are choosing quotes that resonate with them, and we're painting them on different canvases and then hanging them up in their bathrooms. And that's been a really nice opportunity for the girls to participate in as well. But we're here today because of an event that we had in November. We had a speaker from the Urban Outreach Center at the U of M come and talk to us about sex trafficking in Minnesota. And I think this was an event that was a long time coming. After our first event about sex trafficking in the Dominican in 8th grade, there were a lot of girls that started to do research, and they found that Minnesota is a place where sex trafficking is definitely pervasive and affects a lot of different people. And so we had the speaker come and talk to us, and after that, a lot of us realized that this was something that we needed to be taught in school. And so we met with our high school principal, he's also here today, and some of our health teachers, and we told them about the urgent need of teaching this curriculum and giving kids resources and empowering them with what they need to avoid these situations. But then also for the potential buyers in 20, 30, and 40 years, because we definitely need to eradicate the demand, and that definitely starts somewhere. After having those conversations, we are lucky enough in our school district that we are offering our high school students an opportunity to go to an in-school field trip in February to hear from the Link and some survivors from Breaking Free. And through the Community Ed Department, we have organized a February awareness event where we will have a panel of local experts talk about sex trafficking in Minnesota. And we've also been in contact with city councils and mayors, and they have, I think 12 now, have issued proclamations for that day in February as whatever city is not for sale day. And we actually just picked up our proclamation from Governor Dayton's office this morning as he proclaimed February 15th as Minnesota is not for sale day. But throughout all of this, we've also been meeting with a lot of legislators and communicating with them about this bill that we've brought forward today, which will hopefully start the conversation and open many doors towards preventing sex trafficking. We're very lucky that this has been a very openly bipartisan effort, and I think that's very nice for the younger generation to see as well. And so we hope that this will bring a lot of success in this legislative session, and we're very thankful to have you all here today. Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. Well, I'm exhausted just listening to all the work that they've done. It's been pretty amazing. And also that she did that all without notes. I thought this is, I noticed Mary and I both have notes, but that's probably to keep us from talking too long. So thank you so much for this amazing work that you've done, and I've been very happy to be part of it. I'm pleased to have authored and promoted trafficking legislation for the past decade, and we've come a really long way, and someday we could talk about all the legislation that Jeff Bauer and I have been pleased to be part of over the years. I wanted to share two stories about how real trafficking can be to each of us. I live in a downtown Saint Paul condo, and it's connected by Skyway to a hotel. And a few years ago, a young girl from Iowa was trafficked in that hotel right next door to me in my neighborhood. After several days of captivity, she managed to make a phone call to police in panic, claiming that the traffickers were threatening to kill her. Fortunately, she was rescued and sent back to her family in Iowa. The traffickers were caught, they were prosecuted by John Choi, and convicted. This all happened in what is really my neighborhood. Another story even closer to home that was more of a close call, a young relative of mine who lives in a Twin Cities suburb went missing for several days before Thanksgiving. Of course, her family was in a panic. Was she kidnapped? Was she killed? Or, God forbid, was she being trafficked? Had she been persuaded or coerced to leave home and was being trafficked? Fortunately, she returned home unharmed. But these are just two examples of girls that our bill is hoping to forewarn, to warn them that, you know, things are not safe out there, that there are people who are trained to manipulate you, to coerce you, to persuade you that they're your boyfriend and that you're just going to do them a favor by starting to traffic. And they prey on girls that are vulnerable. A lot of them are handicapped. A lot of them are girls of color. They may have problems at home. They may have been abused at home. They're very vulnerable. And this is what the curriculum that we hope to have schools teach will warn girls against. That's only one way that we can try to keep our boys and our young girls safe. So thank you very much, Jessica and Girls United, for bringing this forward. And next, I'd like to introduce Brandy Maddox, one of our Safe Harbor navigators. Brandy.
Hi, so I'm Randy Maddox. I work for the Link, and I'm the Safe Harbor mobile case manager / regional navigator. And I also have my direct supervisor, Cora Burns, here with me. We're filling in for Beth here. So the Link is a nonprofit that was founded by Jim Marshall and Oscar Reed that provides programming for youth involved in the juvenile justice system or who are experiencing homelessness or sex trafficking. We know firsthand how much of an issue sex trafficking is in everyday life here in Minnesota. We provide supportive services, emergency shelter, housing for victims of sex trafficking between the ages of 12 to 24. These youth come from all communities across the state for no fault of their own, are being abused for other people's profits, and that's just not okay. This is why we truly appreciate the opportunity to partner with Girls United on this important legislation to encourage schools to add sex trafficking prevention and education into Minnesota schools. Youth and young people from the Link who have experienced sex trafficking firsthand wanted to create a way to help younger youth avoid having to go through these situations. They've been working to develop a prevention curriculum called I Am Priceless, based on our I Am Priceless prevention campaign. We truly appreciate Jessica Melnik and all the Girls United along with the legislators who are willing to help support this legislation. And we just want to thank you all just for making this a huge success and putting the awareness out there that sex trafficking is a huge deal and that it is happening in our state, not just during the Super Bowl, but every day. And so we just encourage you all to do whatever you can to do to get involved. And if you have any questions or you just don't know what to do or say, call the link or call the regional navigator, and we will definitely come out to help you solve those issues.
Hello, my name is Representative Jessup. I am from the northern suburbs, Shoreview, Arden Hills, and Mounds View. One additional comment I would like to just mention and pick up on from Brandy is that the link was chosen by the NFL to do a media campaign here in the Twin Cities during this week. They have come up with billboards that are "I am precious." And that message, I'm sorry, "I am priceless."
They're precious, too.
Both. I am priceless. And the message came from a youth board. Those that work with the link, that are some of the youth that are being serviced by the organization, they were given the challenge and said, what would you like? What message would resonate? And that was the message that they came up with. And I think it's an appropriate message to be communicating out to everyone really in the Twin Cities and beyond for this week. I just want to say thank you on behalf of all the legislators to Jessica and your peers for all of your efforts and your initiative. And Brandy, to you as well. We appreciate you, your teammates, and all the efforts of the link. And I also want to just say kudos out to the members that are associated with the Hopkins schools that are here today. Really appreciate you coming forward and showing your support for these young women. And I'm going to give one more shout out, and that is this unknown 7th grade teacher that influenced these young women here. You know, so often, I just want to say, teachers sometimes don't hear the appreciation that they deserve. But when we have evidence that comes before us in these types of initiatives, this is where teachers really do their finest work. So I just want to put a shout out really to this particular 7th grade teacher, but also to other teachers all across our cities. This week, we celebrate Minnesota as Bold North to the rest of the world. With the spotlight upon us, let's work together as students, as educators, as legislators, and as citizens to do our best to eliminate sexual exploitation and sex trafficking in our community. Thank you, and with that, if there are any questions, I am certain we have some people that can answer them.
Do you have some indication from leadership that this bill will get some emphasis and get pushed forward?
I believe we, on co-authors, we have each of the chairs of the education committees, Representative Erickson, Representative Loon in the House, and Senator Pratt and Senator Nelson in the Senate. So we're confident our first step is a hearing, and I think we will have that early on in session. And then after that, we're hoping to progress and get it signed by the governor.
Does this have anything to do with Aaron's Law? I know that it was something that was being pushed for last year. It sounds very similar because it has so much to do with curriculum. What can you tell me about the similarities or the differences, if
I
there
think
are?
there's some similarities. I'll let my colleagues mention as well. We were able to pass Aaron's Law last year. It's not the same provision. It's not the same law that we're amending. It's a similar one. But again, this is a suggestion to school districts for these resources to combat and educate on sex trafficking.
How confident are you that they'll take this suggestion? Because it sounds like Aaron's Law isn't something that's necessarily applied the way some people would like to see it being applied. How are you going to make sure that if this passes, it's something that's in schools?
Well, and I don't want to speak for others, but my understanding is the Department of Education has been involved in some of these conversations. They're okay with the verbiage currently, and now the process, as any bill is, go to the committee. If there's any amendments or conversations, I believe this is pretty straightforward and, again, common sense that we should be able to get this through. I think we've got some support of of educators and school districts. So I am confident that this should pass and should be signed by the governor. Anybody else?
Forgot to introduce myself, Senator Sandy Pappas, and I just wanted to mention, you saw what great organizers these girls are. So I think they're up to the challenge. If they have to talk to the School Board Association, if they have to go school board by school board throughout the state, I bet we'll see them on the trail.
I'm a little afraid to ask, but I'm not entirely certain I know the complete meaning of sandwich makers. I hope it's nothing that's embarrassing, beyond just the obvious sexism of the phrase. There's nothing beyond that. Okay, thank you.
To the, Jessica or your friend, here, have you known girls who have been recruited for sex trafficking? Is that part of this?
There was, that I know of, when we were in elementary school and going into junior high, there was a girl up at our high school that was trafficked, but I know that this is something that happens in a lot of communities, and it affects a lot of different neighborhoods, and not just cities, but definitely greater Minnesota and our communities as well. And I know that through many conversations with our police department and neighboring police departments, it's definitely something that affects those communities.
Jessica, really quick, in the press release, it says that you observed a fellow classmate being trafficked. What does someone being trafficked look like for people who want to know the warning signs?
I think Randy can probably better speak to that.
Well, I will say, trafficking is not what you would see on Law and Order or any of those shows. Trafficking, we have youth who go to school every day, and who could be being exploited and or trafficked. And these traffickers are very savvy. They want these kids to continue to go to school because that's a way for them to recruit youth. And it could just be, a youth showing up with items that they may not necessarily be able to buy. It could be a youth incessantly on the phone and having to, answer to a certain person. Sometimes it's not very obvious, and sometimes these things come out in conversations, with youth and their friends. And they may not know that it's trafficking or exploitation until, someone goes and talks to a teacher or a counselor, and then they, kind of started to notice that, some of these things aren't right. And then that's when we kind of will get a call and we step in. But sometimes, it is kind of hard. There aren't, obvious signs all the time. But I mean, it could be a youth who's always tired, who is just, making it by, And so those sometimes are indicators, not always, but they can be. So sometimes it's not as obvious, but it is very, very prevalent, and it is happening in schools, and our kids are going to school every day being exploited and trafficked.
Can you speak a little bit, and I don't want to hog the time here, to the vulnerable communities, particularly women of color or women who are having trouble at home with their families? I know there was a statistic mentioned earlier, but can you speak a little bit more to that?
Well, I will say that, yes, it is huge. It is affecting a lot of minority women with trafficking. And I mean, it just could be several different, reasons why they are being approached or why this is happening. And yeah, there are, factors, as far as home life, if there's any supervision at home, or if mom and dad are struggling with different things. So there's just a lot of different reasons why a youth could potentially end up being trafficked, whether it's homelessness, just a lot of different things. And so we are hoping that our efforts are helping to prevent that and or, help these youth that are in the life that would not like to be in the life. And so I'm very grateful that the link is really putting the focus on this, as well as Girls United and anyone else who is paying attention to this. It's real, and let's just do our best to help our kids.
Randy, what's your advice to the students if they think somebody may be trafficked? What steps should they take?
Definitely go talk to someone. There's counselors, there's these teachers at school. And even if they don't exactly know what to say or do, always just give that information, because that's why we're here. They can always reach out to us as the navigators, any of the navigators in our state or any other organizations that deal with trafficking, and we can always help you out with that. It's something that you probably aren't ready for, and may not know what to say and or what to do. And so just always reach out to us, and we can come out and do trainings, and we can, train your staff, or, any organization that would like any help looking into what signs and things are and how to help these youth. So just always just let someone know, and the next step is just to call us.
I'm struck by the fact that it was kind of a form of sexual harassment that sort of put this on the radar and got this in motion. And because sexual harassment obviously is a giant topic now, is there an intersection there? Is sexual harassment a predictor in some sense of the likelihood of future sex trafficking? Is that a tactic that the sex trafficker uses, and will that be part of the curriculum?
It can be sometimes. And again, like she was saying, these vulnerabilities, it could be, a youth that is kind of feeling awkward or ends up in a homeless position, just different things like that. But yes, sexual harassment can lead to, several different things as far as exploitation and or trafficking. Maybe not, the trafficking, but maybe exploitation, but, it goes right along with that.
Could one of the school officials tell us if you have a program to monitor for these problems in the schools?
Certainly try. My name is Doug Willing. I'm the principal at Hopkins High School. We don't have something that's specific to sexual exploitation or sexual trafficking. We do really emphasize the value of having connectedness and making sure that every student has an adult that they trust, that they can go to whenever there is an issue, whether it's hallway para, administrator, teacher, whomever it might be, bus driver, that they can then get that information funneled to the right person that can then help that student out in the best way possible. I will say that as a district, we've taken a strong stance toward just making sure that we're trained what does sexual harassment look like, and making sure that students know that it's not acceptable, that teachers know what to listen for, what to look for. And again, kudos to our I think it was West Junior High teacher who took this and turned it into a learning opportunity for that class and for the students, and we can see now what this has turned into.
Where does this sexual harassment prevention training come? In certain classes, in all classes? How?
On the adult side of things, it's embedded into our professional development throughout the year. There's not a curriculum piece, and that's where this is coming from. Our health department, our health teachers weave it into certainly healthy relationships. What does a healthy relationship look like? And what's, I think, most important, and to piggyback off of what somebody else was saying earlier, is that it's important to make sure that the young ladies or whomever is being trafficked are tended to, but it's just as important, probably more important, to speak to the males who may eventually be the perpetrators of this. So making sure that our young males in our schools are properly schooled in this and educated on what does appropriate conversation look like, what is appropriate interaction with one another, just even mindsets. What are the right mindsets to have around equality?
To return to my question, a moment, just to get a legislator to pipe in, I got the first half of my question answered, but what about will sexual harassment training of some sort be weaved into this legislation? So some sort of recognition of that and early warning signs, that kind of thing?
At this point, I think we're really focused just upon what the Girls United has really accomplished and what they want to pursue on the sexual exploitation. So the focus is really, let's go forward with their initiative. And so often, legislation that means well can continue, and then this gets added, and it kind of muddies up what finally becomes law. And I think from the perspective of myself as well as my colleagues, if we had the opportunity to move this forward by itself and just focus upon the contribution, the initiative of Girls United, I think that would be our desire. You did mention about sexual harassment, and I don't have the specific data in front of me, but I know that Representative Kunesh-Podein, myself, and others of our peers were given communication that there will be sexual harassment and other training that will be happening in the House. And I believe it's like February 23rd or something, but it will be right after we get into session going forward. I would anticipate there will be a similar initiative that will also occur in the Senate. Certainly, the whole subject of sexual harassment is one that is also very, very important to all of us in this room. And I would say, you've seen that from the governor's office, and I think you will certainly see it in behalf of the legislature on both the initiatives in the Senate as well as the House.
Jessica, just one last question from me at least. Can you talk about what role denial plays in all this? I mean, you've been working on this since the 7th grade, and have you encounter people who just can't believe there's really a problem?
I think I can answer, and I think some other girls can answer too, but I think that there's definitely, I mean, if you look hard enough, there's always people that don't believe in whatever we're working on or other things, but I think that we've just tried to move past that and tried to keep going with what we're going, but I know that some of the other girls can speak to some of the other things that we've experienced.
My name is Lizzie Sirianni. I think a big part of it is realizing that this is also a local issue, not just a global issue. I know a lot of the girls had their eyes opened at the speaker event where we were taught about the local sex trafficking versus the Dominican sex trafficking. And you just realize that this could happen to the women and young women in your own life, and you want to help prevent that, and we need to help spread awareness that this actually does happen in Minnesota, and the community education night that we're having should help with that, hopefully. So.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you.